Hi everyone. Well, we've got the bottom of him done. So this is what he looks like so far. Not too bad, I don't think. I have to finish this little piece right in here. So we need to get our other tray here. Swap these out. Like so. And kind of this rose colored base bottom one here. Then we need to do our hair and skin and all that good stuff. And then we'll have this guy done. Then we'll be ready to move on to our two final pieces. And in fact, I don't know, we may just stop it at this and let it be okay, because we have quite a few pieces on this anyway. And you don't want to make it so big that it's hard to take care of. So we may just stop with these and let it be. Right now we have to make our skin tone, which is a burnt umber. We'll dab a burnt umber and a little bit of yellow ochre. Remember, it's just a dab of each of these. And then a little bit of white titanium. And it's just a little dab of all. And then we're going to blend it together. To get the color we want. So we have all these, and now we're going to blend them together. To get the color we want. I didn't make up much because we're just doing his face, hands, and arms, which are not big areas and will not require a lot. So we're gonna do this. Anyway, back to our subject. I feel sorry for young people nowadays. Financially, I don't think we were any better off. Back when my ex-husband and I moved into our first apartment, I think we paid like $125 a month for a one-bedroom efficiency. And it was actually the upstairs of this lady's house. She had converted into an apartment. And we had our first daughter when we moved in there. But, and people go, well, that was really cheap. And I get that. It sounds cheap. But he was working as the manager of a gas station at night. And I was working in a hospital during the day, and I made 85 cents an hour, and he, as a manager, made $2.75 an hour. And that's what we had to support ourselves and that baby on. And that sounds crazy, I know, and people say, well, groceries are cheaper. Yes, that's true, they were. But it really doesn't. I mean, yeah, things were cheaper, but like I said, the wages were cheaper too. I remember when my mom couldn't afford to buy groceries, so and she worked a full-time job and had for many years. My dad had a heart attack and was on disability, but my mother worked a full-time job and had for many years, and at the time made relatively good money. She made like $5 an hour, which, you know, in that time was good money. That was what, 1970, 1968, 69, 70, somewhere in there. And she couldn't keep us in groceries for the week. So they used to run a tab for you at the grocery store. People they knew would pay it off. And of course my mom would, and she got a paycheck every week. And after she cashed her check, that was the first place we went, was to the grocery store to pay off her tab. Because that was very important, because she was going to need that tab for the next week. And I can remember one week it got to $125 because my sister, for whatever reason, I don't even remember now, but brought her daughter and came to stay with us. And of course she wasn't working. And that was a strain on my mother to try to provide groceries for them also. And I remember she was so upset, and she cried, and she said she wasn't going to be able to pay off the whole tab, so she wasn't going to be able to buy groceries for the next week. And the butcher, I never will forget this man. The butcher saw my mother so upset. She was sitting out in the parking lot on the tailgate of my dad's truck crying. And he saw her so upset. And so he'd been a friend of my parents for a very long time. And my dad's trying to console my mom the best he can, but she's inconsolable at this point because she's so distraught over what she's going to do. And he stopped and he said to my parents, you know, what was wrong? Could he help? And so my dad kind of explained the situation, and he never said a word. But he went into the grocery store, and I never will forget, he came out and he had a bag of oxtails and a bag of flour. And he said to my mom, you can make biscuits, right, Anna? And she said, yeah, she could. And he said, and you can make noodles? And she said, yeah, she knew how to do that too. And he said, do you have eggs? And she said, well, she could get eggs out on the farm and milk. And he said, okay. So I gave her this bag of oxtails and this bag of flour, and he told her, he said, go home and feed your family. And she said, I can't pay you for this. And he said, I didn't ask you to pay me for this. I told you to go home and feed your family. And he said, come back in the middle of the week and I'll have something else for you. So she went back, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, and he gave her a bag full of chicken backs and necks. And so she took them home, and she made noodles. And my sister's husband, my oldest sister's husband, had a mishap at work. And he was off work, and of course my sister was stressing how she was going to feed him and her and their daughter. And so my mom told her to come down and she would feed him. And my sister knew it was hard for my mom, and she didn't want to, but kind of really had no choice. So she came down, and my mom took these chicken necks and backs and threw them in a big pot and stewed them up. And then she went out in our garden and she dug up some corn or some carrots, and she got a couple roasting ears, and then she got a couple of potatoes. She dug a couple of potatoes, and she came back in the house, and she made some noodles. And so she took these chicken backs and necks, and she had my sisters pick the meat off of them. And if you know anything about them, you know there's not much meat there to pick off, but she had them pick off what was there. She put that in the noodles, and she cooked the vegetables she'd gotten in the garden, and she diced up the carrots and put them in the soup, and she made some homemade bread. And my mother fed my sisters and their husbands, and 2 of her grandchildren. No, 3 of her grandchildren. Myself and my dad, on what that man at the grocery store gave her. And I don't know if anybody else has ever been eternally grateful for that man or not, but I sure have. He, I think, saved my family. I know he sure kept us from going hungry. And I've always been grateful to him for that. He didn't have to. It was the generosity of his spirit that did it. And then my dad had a friend whose name was Mr. Jackson. And if my dad caught carp, because my dad fished a lot, he would take it to Mr. Jackson and his wife, because they would can it. And my mother would not. And so he would take it to them, and they would can it, and then they would have meat to eat on in the winter. And one year it got lean for us again, like it always did in the winter. And we came home, and one of the neighbors had gone out hunting and had shot 3 ducks, I believe. And he brought them over and he put them on the porch. And there was 2 jars of canned carp and some vegetables that people had canned, and just a simple note that said, I hope this helps. And I think about that now, and how generous all those people were. And I think it didn't matter what color we were, or what nationality we were, or how rich or poor we were. They were just people helping out neighbors who needed help. And in case you're wondering, Mr. Jackson was a black gentleman. The guy that brought us the ducks was a German gentleman. The people who left the vegetables were, I think, Irish and Hispanic. See, it didn't matter. It didn't matter to anybody what our nationality was. They only knew that we were people who needed help. And I look at how divided our country is now, and I think, why can't we just have that again? Why can't we just have people who don't care what the color of your skin is? They don't care what nationality you are. They don't care what nationality you speak. They don't care how you dress. They just want to help because you're people. I don't know where we lost that, and I'm sorry we did. Because I think when we lost that, we lost something very, very valuable. Very important. And yeah, I realize I grew up in a very small town, which I did. There were probably, I don't know, maybe on the outside there were 5,000 people in my town that I grew up in. I realize that's small. I do. I realize it's a small town. But I also realized that people in that town cared about each other. They took care of one another. They were their neighbor's keeper. They were their neighbor's friend. And I miss that. I miss that. They never made us feel less than. They never made us feel like we were unworthy. And there were times when my parents had it and gave back to them because they didn't have it. I remember all the ladies went together and bought one of the ladies in town a washing machine because she had children and couldn't afford a washing machine. And it was a Ringer washer, but they bought it for her. And I remember that. And I wish we could go back to that. I live in a town now of maybe 1,000 people. Maybe. I don't know who my neighbors are. I don't stand and talk to them over the fence. I don't know anything about my neighbors. I don't. You know, my neighbor on the right had some kids, and now she's got his one daughter there, so I'm assuming the boys went off to college or got married or whatever it was they were going to do. You know, my neighbor across the street passed away from COVID 2 years ago. That's about what I know. So, anyway, I digress, but it's just a little bit of thought on what I think we've lost as a nation that made us great as a nation, that we no longer do. I think one of the things that made us so great as a nation was that we cared about our people. We cared about each other. And I don't think we can say that now. I think now it's just everybody out for themselves. And I think that's how great nations fall. Is when people stop caring about the people in their nation and just care about themselves. I think that's what's wrong with our politicians. I think that's what's wrong with our nation in general. And like I said, I think that's how great nations fall. This guy's face is a little difficult, guys. It doesn't look near as good as I'd like him to. Alright, well, let's get this one downloaded, shall we? And then I think we'll be done with videos for today. And we probably won't do any more until after the new year. We probably won't work on any more until after the new year. I try not to work when Joe is home. Although he is going hunting tomorrow morning and Monday morning. So maybe I'll get a little bit. Maybe I can get one done while he's hunting. Because he'll be out a couple of hours doing that. This guy just has a really hard face. It's like nose is like really mushed in or something. I don't know. But anyway, let me finish this one little piece so you can see. And then this guy is done. Guys, we have him done. He's ready to go to the sealer's table and be done. He's just really hard to, for whatever reason, his face is not molded well, I think is how I'd have to say it, but I think we got it okay. He's a little bit different, but his head's so downturned you're not going to see his face much anyway, so I think we'll be all right. All right. See, his face is just hard. I don't know what's wrong with it, but it's just not right. There's something just not right about his face. Let me see if I can fix it. Just a little bit. Maybe I can. And then we'll have him done. His beard, I think, needs fixed a bit. Maybe that's the problem. His beard just needed fixed a bit. Let's see if maybe this works a little better. Fix his beard a little bit this way and see. Sorry guys, hang on just a second. I'll have him fixed, I think. Oh, it just takes a little bit here. It's a little bit different. And I think it's because his nose is so short, maybe. It makes it hard not to get it up in his nose area. I think that might be part of the problem. As his nose area is so short. It's kind of like he's got a dirty face, but yeah, maybe this isn't so bad. His beard's a little darker than the others, but I think it'll be okay. Let me get a little pink here in his mouth. And I think we got him. Okay. Yeah, see, that looks better, doesn't it? Not quite as bad. It's just something about his face that's off to me. But anyway, he's done. He's ready to go to the table. So, have a great New Year's, guys. I hope you ring it in well. If you drink, don't drive. Be safe when you party. Go in groups. Stay in groups. Don't be left alone. Guard each other's drinks. I hope everyone is safe, wonderful, and Happy New Year.